It's that time of year again. Since 2007, Activision has released a new Call of Duty game during November, and they have achieved this by having two companies make the games, Infinity Ward and Treyarch. This year, in 2013, it's Infinity Ward's go with Call of Duty Ghosts, the first game in years to come out from Infinity Ward that isn't a Modern Warfare game. Before I take a look at the game itself, I will say that I really like the Call of Duty games. I love being able to pick a new one up every year, and in my opinion each one does enough different to make playing each one worth it, from the World War II setting of World at War to the action blockbuster style of Modern Warfare 3. Lately though, I have started to enjoy the games less. While Modern Warfare 3 is probably my favourite title, with Black Ops 2 I liked the campaign but found the multiplayer to be dull and poorly put together. So, how is the latest Call of Duty? Is Ghost a reason for the haters to stop wasting their time telling everyone how bad the game is without playing it themselves, or does it prove that Call of Duty should die already? Let's see. Also, for this review I played it on the Wii U, so I will be covering the differences that it has over the other versions. The story takes place in the near future, where South America has united into one nation called the Federation and declared war on the US. You are one of two brothers who join the army on the US side. Your dad, who is your CO, sends you into an area called No Man's Land, which was flattened by the Federation when they took over a satellite called Odin and used it to bomb the US. While there you meet a group called the Ghosts, who you eventually join to stop a man called Rourke, who is part of the Federation. The story is completely separated from the Modern Warfare and Black Ops games, but takes place in its own alternative future. It focuses mostly on you, your brother and your dad finding Rourke along with the Ghost, but it doesn't take in any sort of interesting direction. No one really has a strong personality, so you don't get attached to the characters, and every story event is predictable and generic. The game was written by a director called Stephen Gaglan, which was a poor choice. The two films his directors are both thrillers, so he doesn't seem to have any experience with handling a story about a group of soldiers during a large conflict. It means he didn't do a bad job, he just played it safe, and instead of doing something new and interesting, it's just another Call of Duty storyline. I think that might be a bit generous though, as Black Ops 1 and 2 did focus on certain characters and had cool plot events, and the Modern Warfare games had memorable characters, but also had the feeling of taking place in a possible over-the-top World War III. Ghost doesn't have either of these elements, so instead of forming its own identity, it just sits there in the middle. I did like the cliffhanger at the end though, but it was a bit too little too late. Call of Duty Ghosts in terms of gameplay is exactly what you would expect. You run through levels shooting at enemies, sometimes you have to follow someone in a stealth section, and sometimes you have to fight your way through large groups of enemies. All the praise I would give to the other Call of Duty games can be applied to this one. The controls are as tight as ever, and all the battlefields you fight through are well thought out, which provides a fair and fun challenge throughout the game. Something that Call of Duty has always done well is the variety of the levels, and once again Ghost delivers, for the most part. There are new things in the game, but at the same time there is a lot you have probably seen before. I'm going to list some of the new things that happen during Ghost campaign. You ascend down a skyscraper at night, you have gunfights on a satellite orbiting Earth, you have stealth sections underwater where you have to avoid sharks, and you have to chase someone down on top of a moving train. It's up to you whether the campaign does enough different, but for me I feel it does. It doesn't change things up to the same degree that Black Ops 2 did, and I will admit there are certain parts of levels that would easily fit into any of the Modern Warfare games, but I still enjoyed what I played. The new set pieces were still cool, and the game is well designed enough that it's good. If you're looking for something new, then Ghost does have the least original campaign yet, but if you enjoyed the other Call of Duty campaigns, then this one is worth checking out. Before I move away from the campaign, let's talk about Call of Duty Dog. For certain levels you will have a dog following you called Riley, who you can order to attack people and sometimes take control of. When you're controlling Riley, you have to use stealth to take out enemies one by one. Playing as Riley isn't bad, but I found it too stupid to enjoy. There's something about taking control of an animal in a game like Call of Duty that doesn't fit quite right. You only have to do this twice, so it doesn't affect the campaign in any major way. What is great though is giving orders to Riley. If you tap L when looking at someone, Riley will lunge at them. You spend most of the game without Riley unfortunately, but when he is around it is cool to order him about. The campaign itself took me around 5 hours to beat on my first playthrough playing on Hardened. This isn't that unusual for Call of Duty, but the campaign also felt short, which is something the other campaigns managed to avoid. It mostly comes down to the last two levels, which were great fast-paced levels but didn't feel like the last ones. This meant when the credits rolled, I did feel a bit short-changed. The graphics of the game are all over the place. At times this game looks amazing, especially with the jungle level, and it can be really impressive to look at. At other times though, it can look like a HD PS2 game with low resolution textures and draw distance, and some levels just have an unappealing art style. I believe a lot of the problems here come from the fact that Infinity Ward used a new engine for this game that was designed for next generation consoles. I can't speak for the PS3 and 360 versions of the game, but on the Wii U it means that some areas are just graphically underwhelming as they had to downgrade the game to make it run properly. The benefit of the graphics being downgraded though is that the game does run at 60 frames per second. I'm not an expert at this sort of thing, but I didn't notice any sort of drops in the frame rate apart from when the game was loading a couple of times. For those who are also interested, it should be noted that the Wii U version runs at a native 720p, but this shouldn't be too surprising. Let's move on to the multiplayer. Ghost comes with 14 new maps and a completely new range of weapons. The multiplayer is all about fast-paced arcade-style action which can involve shooting other players or achieving game-specific goals. As this is an Infinity Ward game, the multiplayer continues on from Modern Warfare 3, so none of the features from Black Ops 2, such as the terrible 10-point loadout system, is here. Something that sets Ghost apart from the other Call of Duty multiplayers is just how much choice you have when it comes to your character and loadouts. You can now customize the look of your soldier from a range of different uniforms which are unlocked by beating certain challenges. It means that if there's something you would like to add to your character, you have to earn it, which does add satisfaction to customizing your character. There is also more equipment you can add to your guns and more perks than ever before, which gives the player a lot of freedom to create their own unique loadouts. It's nice having this choice, and it'll probably take you a long time to perfect your classes by experimentating with everything. The fact they replaced all the guns is also pretty cool, but if I'm being honest, I would have liked to seen a few of the original guns return as well as the new ones, as a lot of the new ones are just updated version of old guns but not quite as good. To unlock new guns and perks you have to buy them using squad points that you earn in-game, although with the perks you also need to reach a certain level. It isn't a major change, but the point system makes a lot more sense in this game as there's so much you can buy, you really do have to think about what you're going to spend your squad points on. Ghost introduces 4 new game types: Blitz, Cranked, Hunted and Search and Rescue. Returning from the other games are Team Deathmatch, Kill Confirmed, Infected, Free-for-all and Domination. Now I have no problem with them removing some of the game types as there were one too many, but they seem to go overboard with it. Headquarters is gone, Demolition is gone and worst of all Ground War is gone. Some of the new game types are just new versions of the older game types, such as Search and Rescue, which is just search and destroy, but you can now revive teammates by grabbing the dog tag they leave behind. My problem with Ground War now being gone is that every game type is now limited to a maximum of 12 players. Ground War allowed for 18 players, which meant team games were 9 versus 9, which was perfect for how big the maps are. Ground War meant that the action was always fast paced, but there was also strategy in the patterns that the enemies moved in and you being able to predict them properly. You can still play normal team deathmatch, but I always found myself either bored or just annoyed as the maps feel way too big. When I played the game I was just wandering around hoping someone didn't shoot me in the back or that I was lucky enough to find someone facing the wrong way. The maps being too big just encourages camping and is just dull. If you enjoy playing normal team deathmatch in the other games though, then don't worry as the maps are the same size as the other Call of Duty games and it does feel the same. Personally though, I find myself playing more objective based games such as Blitz, where you have to run into the other team's circle to score points as they try to run into your team's circle, as it's as fast paced as I like it to be. For the record, the PC version has Ground War, and the PS4 and Xbox One version probably will too. It's just the 360, PS3 and Wii U versions that miss out. There are also other minor additions to the multiplayer such as kill streaks. You can once again choose between Assault, Support and Specialist, where Assault are traditional kill streaks, Support kill streaks help the whole team but don't reset when you die, and Specialist gives you extra perks as you get kills. There are also new kill streaks, with my personal favourite being a dog that follows you around and gets you kills, but if you die it doesn't die and will find you again. The maps are also great for Ghosts, even though they are a bit too big, and as usual Infinity Ward's maps design are head over heels of the Treyarch ones. Certain maps are now called dynamic maps where events can be triggered which changes the terrain. It's a nice idea, but it's too limited in its execution. I played multiple games before I noticed the map change, and even when I did notice it, it felt weird and pointless. To sum up the multiplayer, it really is more Call of Duty multiplayer, with enough different that there's plenty to play around with, but it's not going to convince non-Call of Duty players that it's worth coming back to the franchise. There are two new modes to go along with the campaign and multiplayer. The first is Extinction, where you fight off aliens. It's similar to the zombie mode from the Treyarch games, but there are a few differences. There is no story to it, and while it is about survival, you trigger the waves by drilling into alien pods and you have to protect the drill to proceed. It's a nice addition that you can get into, but there is only one continuous map rather than separate ones. It means you really have to get sucked into this mode to put up with the first areas over and over again, and it doesn't help that the aliens don't come in waves. In Zombies mode you had a number in the bottom of the screen telling you what wave you were on, and it was fun trying to reach higher and higher waves. In Extinction mode you only have a score, so you don't feel as motivated to get better scores as it's a survival mode and the score doesn't really matter. The second new mode is Squads. Squads mode is split into 4 different game modes: War Game, Safeguard, Squad vs Squad and Squad Assault. War Games is pretty much practice mode where you can play all the standard multiplayer modes only against AIs. Safeguard is an updated survival mode from Modern Warfare 3 where you hold out against different waves of enemies. I have to say though, it's not quite as good as survival. A problem I had with it is that the first waves of enemies are Ravagers, who charge at you with shotguns. You only start off with a pistol and can't pick up their weapons, so early on it's easy to get surrounded and killed. The other 2 squad modes I haven't been able to check out as you have to connect to other players online, and on the Wii U I couldn't connect to anyone. This is understandable for Squad vs Squad, as this game mode is a one-on-one mode, but Squad Assault is a co-op mode where you fight AIs, so it's odd that you can't play it offline. It does look like there is some depth to the squads and you have different soldiers that you have to level up, but I was unable to try it out, so I can't go too deep into that. Let's talk about the Wii U differences. I've already mentioned that it runs at a stable 60 frames per second and runs at a native 720p and is upscaled to 1080p. Usually with Wii U games the gamepad will display some useful information, but during the campaign there's next to nothing on it. During the multiplayer you can look at the map on the gamepad or change your loadouts, but for the most part the second screen is barely used. You can play the game entirely off screen using the gamepad and control the game itself with either the gamepad, Pro Controller or Wiimote and Nunchuck. The analog sticks in the gamepad and Pro Controllers aren't as tight as the 360 sticks, but they are better than the PS3's. A problem you might notice straight away is that the button layout is wrong. It's only for the Y, X, A and B buttons, but for some reason the default functions for these buttons are wrong, and even when they change them they still feel wrong for some reason. As someone who has been playing Call of Duty for years on the 360, it took me playing most of the game to adjust to the new button layout, and even now I will press the wrong button, meaning I will jump when I'm meant to crouch and get killed. I tried out using the Wiimote and Nunchuck and found mixed results. I found I could get headshots easier, but people would kill me before I could even get the chance. If you like using the Wiimote and Nunchuck in Black Ops 2, then it's very similar here, but otherwise it's just a nice addition. Of course the online community isn't as large on the Wii U as it is in the other versions, but there are still people playing the game. Certain game types will be empty sometimes, but I haven't had a problem yet jumping into a game, although that might change in a year's time. Also, the Wii U does support headsets for online, but unfortunately only supports 2-player offline multiplayer, but you can have 2 players on one console playing online. Surprise surprise, Call of Duty Ghosts is more of the same. The strangest thing though is that each Call of Duty does separate itself from the others, but Ghost does very little of this, making it the blandest one yet. That doesn't mean it's a bad game though, as the campaign still has a lot of cool moments, there are some welcome changes to the multiplayer, and the squads and extinction modes are enjoyable distractions. I would say Ghost is the opposite to Black Ops 2. While Black Ops 2 tried to do things differently and was a little rough around the edges, Ghost changes very little but keeps everything pretty tight. Unless Treyarch can deliver something fresh next year though, with the next generation of consoles coming out, this could be the beginning of the end for Call of Duty. My score is 6.5 out of 10. I definitely enjoyed myself when playing Call of Duty Ghosts, but as a chance to reboot the series, this game fails in almost every way.